Ocean is the 6th part of the JoJo's series, taking place after Part 5, Vento Audio. I'm not sure what the general consensus of the fanbase's opinion on Stone Ocean. It doesn't seem as obvious when compared to the other JoJo parts. With Part 3 is the repetitive nature, and Part 4 is the slower pace and fillerish content, while in Part 5 it's the art style and some characters, but in Part 6 the negative aspects are... I don't know. I think people just didn't like the really bizarre stand abilities or its ambiguous plot, which true purpose isn't revealed to the very last chapter. I'm in the dark on what people disliked about it, especially when there's praise for the villain, the main hero, and even its ending. So maybe this review can help change people's perspective, or maybe it won't. After all, it'll probably be 2020 when Stone Ocean gets an anime adaptation. Let's see if my predictions are true. And for the sake of this review, I'll be using the digital colored scans since they're available for the entirety of Part 6, but I wish they resembled Araki's coloring style. I mean, come on guys, there's a big difference in quality here. Stone Ocean is a very unique part in JoJo as it retcons certain events from Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. In fact, the story is written as a smooth transition from Part 3 to 6, treating Parts 4 and 5 as almost irrelevant. While I don't agree in skipping parts, Stone Ocean does place a great emphasis on reusing material from Stardust Crusaders and previous JoJo stories. In the year 2000, Stone Ocean premiered in Weekly Shonen Jump, but the story itself takes place in the year 2011. The series is set completely within the United States, specifically in the Green Dolphin Street Jail at Port St. Lucie, Florida. What I really appreciate in most JoJo parts is how quickly it is to get absorbed into the story. In this case, we are introduced to Jolene Kujo, daughter of Kujo Jotaro, so making this part the first to have a female main character along with several others. Much like the start of Stardust Crusaders, Stone Ocean begins at a jail cell, where our hero makes her debut, but unlike her father, she is taken to court. In parts 4 and 5, we had stories where Jotaro was involved in a search for certain individuals, but this time, Jotaro is nowhere to be seen. Instead of appearing in person, Jotaro sends Jolene a necklace containing a photograph and a shard of the golden arrow, in which activates Jolene's stand. Prior to the trial, Jolene was dating a young man named Romeo, who accidentally hit a pedestrian. In a panic, they both hit the body, but the secret was discovered, causing Jolene to be arrested. But things take a turn for the worse as Romeo betrays Jolene, framing her for the hit and run. Jolene is found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison. But right before Jolene is taken to her cell, she sees her lawyer, who helped Romeo in the deception. Feeling sad, enraged, and manipulated by the two men she trusted, Jolene attempts to kill her lawyer. From the 8 parts of JoJo, none have got me so invested in these 3 chapters, and I haven't even explained the plot of Stone Ocean. After a few chapters, we discovered Jolene's arrest was part of a bigger scheme, as her imprisonment eventually calls forth her father. Jotaro enters Dolphin Street in order to rescue his daughter, but amidst the prison break, an enemy stand user attacks him, leading for the villainous mastermind to use his stand, Whitesnake, to snatch away Jotaro's Star Platinum and memories in form of CDs. Jotaro becomes entangled in a state between life and death, but manages to share affectionate words to his daughter. Jolene, being moved by love, gets her father to safety, but refuses to leave. She stays inside the prison walls to hunt down Whitesnake and his user, so she can save her father's life. With this newfound resolve, Jolene's womanly adventure begins. As seen in previous reviews, JoJo tends to follow a formula being the stand enemy of the week, but Stone Ocean manages to make every fight relevant. All foes in the story serve the purpose and each fight moves the story forward. So in part 5 we had the feature of bullet firing stands, and surprisingly, we keep that style in Stone Ocean with the character Foo Fighters, but what about the tone of each individual battle? I suppose the fights in part 6 are an expansion to the action of part 5. It's fast paced, but also contains the right amount of horror, mystery, suspense, and of course, gritty violence. I think there's a bit more emphasis on hand-to-hand combat, reminiscent of Phantom Blood and a bit of Fist of the North Star, due to some panels focusing on their hands. Other examples include the staple of punching, but now we're utilizing kicks and even weaponry like in Battle Tendency. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has finally become a physical combat series. As said earlier, most of the stand abilities in this part are very odd, even for JoJo. It's not necessarily bad, but it'll definitely make you question the logic or context of several abilities.
Alright, yada yada dawa, how the fuck do I fly this thing? Holy Jesus, what the fuck? Fucking rods, fucking frogs, fucking rainbows! Where the fuck did this video come from? Why is the dude chasing me? What the fuck is happening?
Dio!
What the fuck? Mickey Mouse! Yada yada dawa!
Maybe this is why people's opinions of Stone Ocean are left in mystery. There is one thing that separates Part 6 from the other JoJo stories, which affects the tone. It's still comedic, scary, clever, and suspenseful, like the rest, yet there's a little something that gave the story a new flavor, which I find to be the most appealing aspect of Stone Ocean. And that special something is called manliness! We had gentle manliness, fabulous manliness, what the fuck horror manliness, slice of life manliness, gangstar manliness, and now, manliness, yeah! Gentle! Oh wait, that'd be a cool name for a female Joestar. Joan Joestar. You have no idea how much I anticipate for a Stone Ocean anime, because I want to see some womanly anime characters. But, what is a womanly character? Just watch this clip.
Natural queen, she's gonna brave her. Oh, till you're in vicious life. Natural queen, oh, falling in love tonight.
Manly! In the manga for Part 4, Araki started to change his art style and eventually went full-on fabulous with Part 5. But in Part 6, we had a slight art style change being manly. In my review of Part 5, I found it ironic that the women were now more muscular than the male JoJo characters, when previously it was the other way around. Originally, Jolene is shown to be very thin, but prison life eventually makes her look really muscular, and towards the end of the manga, her hair is seen tilting upwards. Araki always seems to add a new drawing habit in each part, and I noticed two things in Stone Ocean. There's an emphasis on close-ups of characters' eyes. A lot of panels focus on Jolene's eyes reacting to the situation. The second thing is a peculiar drawing style for muscles. In various works of fiction, I've seen realistic muscles and exaggerated physiques, and Araki always seemed to struggle with this concept as early as Bao'o, Gorgeous Irene, and Phantom Blood. I felt he perfected it by the end of Part 3 with Dio. But in Stone Ocean, it's mostly realistic, with the exception for one thing. There seems to be lines that look like cracks on their shoulders. In Stardust Crusaders, I noticed Araki would draw these lines on their wrists, and they had these bell-shaped shoulders, but here it really resembles cracks when shoulder muscles tend to look like this. I don't mind it, but I thought it was worth sharing. Also, look at Foo Fighters' wrists in these panels.
Damn!
She should arm wrestle Star Platinum. Well, I think you already have an idea of manliness by looking at my other videos, but to probably explain the appeal of the gender swap version, first I'll need to talk about the characters. Stone Ocean consists of 6 main characters, 7 if you include Jotaro. Out of these 6 characters, the ones that gain the most attention are what I like to call the womanly trio, being Jolene, Hermes, and Foo Fighters. Jolene's remarkable traits are determination and resolve to save her father. Following in the footsteps of the 5 previous Joestars, you will see a huge resemblance to previous scenes in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which make Jolene carry all the best heroics of the Joestars into one sexy package. An example of her womanly resolve occurs when she's sent to solitary confinement, where Jolene's only meals are infested with cockroaches, but that's nothing compared to an inmate who throws his shit at her face. You listening to me, people? She took shit to the face, brushed it off, and started eating the cockroach sandwich to restore her strength. Why? Because she wants to save her dad. Womanly! In short, Jolene has so many scenes that are worthy of praise from both a Joestar, a hero, and most of all, a woman lead in Shonen Jump, a magazine for boys. I am a man, but even I can say Jolene Kujo is a motivational character for female empowerment, and she proved this in every fucking fight. She shows compassion to her enemies, she punches and kicks the shit out of her enemies. She endures brutal beatings to the face. She wins her fights with such fulfillment. She lights herself on fire. She rescues children! I'm sorry guys, but I think Jolene is best JoJo. And on to Hermes Costello. While I'm not really a fan of the character, I do appreciate that she represents a minority, being her Hispanic family. Sí, Mexico! Hermes' role in this story is to be Jolene's BFF, but her personal goal is to find the man who hurt her family. Like various JoJo characters, she has her share of comedic and serious moments, but her anger tends to get the best of her. She's often compared to Polnareff due to their quest for revenge, but like previous JoJo friends, Hermes proves herself worthy of carrying this title. Foo Fighters was originally Plankton who gained intelligence due to her stand ability. Like Jolene, Foo Fighters is essentially her own stand. Oh wait, I forgot to mention this. I don't usually talk about stand abilities in my reviews where they take up time, but this is a unique stand for a Joestar to wield. Unlike all previous heroes, Jolene is basically one with her stand. I wouldn't even call it a stand, it's more of a superpower. The stand, Stone Free, is made of Jolene's own flesh and blood. She has the power of super strength, super hearing, and super stretching / shapeshifting. There are times where she squeezes herself into pipes or inside of people. Her own body gets ripped to shreds and can even stretch herself to outrageous lengths. No other stand in JoJo is like Jolene's. Despite bearing traits of Star Platinum and Hierophant Green, Stone Free is a stand that needs its own category, as the user and stand are truly united as one. And Foo Fighters is the closest thing to Stone Free, as she's able to manipulate her body, such as turning her hand into a pistol, and other abilities involving regeneration and liquids. Foo Fighters is curious of human society, therefore she can be a bit quirky as she tries to fit in with the crowd. FF wants to repay Jolene's friendship, so she helps in any way she can, usually being involved in malicious combat. Given her regeneration abilities, Foo Fighters is often shown torn apart in some of the most violent imagery the series has ever made, but as a result of this abuse, FF is depicted as a tough woman who tolerates pain. While she's a person who gets easily fed up, Foo Fighters is definitely a friend you want on your team. And speaking of teams, hey, Eyes of Heaven, where the fuck is Foo Fighters? Emporio sort of acts as support for the cast of Stone Ocean, since he's able to move around freely in the prison. I noticed that Araki sometimes had a kid character, but the ones that worked were the ones who developed courage and maturity. I think he perfected this with Koichi, but Emporio, however, isn't bad by any means, but he tends to be a bit absent in most parts of the story. Basically, he's rarely on the front lines, but that only makes a certain event all the more significant. Before Jojo Leon's Gappy, we have Weather Report, an amnesiac who wants to recover his memories, and by helping Jolene, Weather thinks he can get them back. Okay, if you didn't like Jotaro's stoic personality, then you're in a surprise, because this guy is probably the most stoic character of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just giving a heads up. I personally grew to like Weather, because I thought he was a bit manly and cool with his stand, but I never really liked how he was used in the story. Keeping things spoiler free as much as I can, when we learn his backstory, I never felt comfortable about it. I always thought there should have been a different reason for his amnesia. There's also a very odd scene where he goes evil, then suddenly goes back to normal as if nothing happened. Basically, Weather Report is a dependable ally, but I just felt he could have been used a bit more, despite his very odd stand ability. Anasui is a character I really hate. His whole shtick is an obsession of wanting to marry Jolene, but the problem is, he's an asshole. Anasui does not care for anyone but Jolene. He says he loves her, but I really doubt it. If anything, he wants to force his love upon her regardless of what she thinks. So throughout his appearances in Stone Ocean, I found him incredibly unlikable, because he will not save anyone unless it benefits him. You have to be a total dick to think about tripping the girl you love just so you can catch her in your arms. I'm glad this guy doesn't get anything from her. Yeah, Jolene, don't put a ring on it. Put everything he owns in the box to the left, to the left, to the left, to the motherfucking box to the left. Asshole. Sorry, it's just my opinions. The villains in Part 6 don't necessarily have a recurring theme, unlike other JoJo parts. Most of this feels like the events of Diamond is Unbreakable, where random people become enemies because they got hit by an arrow. Initially, Part 6 starts the same way, with the Golden Arrow being the cause of the first conflict, but does a different spin on this recurring formula. Enter the villain of the series, Enrico Pucci, a priest who is given a mission by Dio, and with his stand, Whitesnake can turn people into stand users who are under his control. So not only can he steal memories and stands, but also create stand users and even brainwash them. This is fucking hacks. So Araki took the Adam Heartfather premise and made it so much better here. I also should mention 3 brothers appear, and I felt one in particular was a missed opportunity. He's only used for one fight, but from his point of view, it makes sense for him to play a pivotal role in the story. It would have been interesting to see 2 antagonists go at it in JoJo, but this idea will later be used in Steel Ball Run. So, who is Enrico Pucci? He's the type of villain I hate the most. Unlike Anasui, I think Pucci is used properly as a villain, but he makes me so angry. But I'm trying to say that he's not a crappy character. Pucci's whole mindset is filled with hypocrisy, for his destiny is to bring heaven upon the world, but to do so, he is willing to murder, manipulate, and sacrifice anyone for the sake of the so-called divine righteousness. Despite being a man of the cloth, Enrico is a guy who sees means to an end or doing things for the greater good regardless how much sins he commits. Pucci feels no guilt towards his actions and believes this act of reaching heaven to be his purpose. and others should follow his opinion, or rather, Dio's opinion. This does make him a very threatening villain, but personally it makes me so furious at his so-called heroics. I find characters who believe they are good when they're clearly not to be very despicable. In other words, a hero's greatest nemesis is a villain who thinks he's a hero even when they're aware of their evil acts. To deliver justice, with quotation marks. Enrico doesn't have much to compare with previous villains as he's mostly his own thing. He can relate to Diavolo just because of his stand being introduced first, and his identity revealed later. Like Kira and Diavolo, Pucci does continue the hiding game, where he operates in stealth, usually manipulating others like Dio with his flesh buds. I suppose the one thing Enrico has in common with Cars is that he seeks a certain object, which is needed to fulfill his goal. Aside from his loyalty to Dio, Enrico Pucci is very different from other JoJo villains, as he doesn't seem to enjoy killing or is over the top like the rest, but he definitely inflicts harm to a lot of people who piss him off. For a priest, this man is very blasphemous. Stone Ocean possibly rivals the conflict between Jonathan and Dio, since Jolene and Pucci square off multiple times. I only wish there was more scenes of both characters interacting before the discovery of Whitesnake's identity, but what we got in the final battle is definitely good. No, not good. Excellent. This is how you do a proper final fight. Throughout all of JoJo from 1 through 5, the final battle's been mixed if you critique it. In Phantom Blood, the fight was mostly dialogue with very little action, which can be summed up as throw roses, cut him, punch him with fire. The end. I know there's the ship, but this is a better example. Battle tendency consists of saving mom with ropes, Hamon karate chop, running away, jump on a plane, crash the plane, and 2 lucky breaks. If anything, I think the opening song is what gave this fight more power than what's actually here. Basically, it's way too one-sided, with Cars being the dominant one. In Stardust Crusaders, we had complete physical combat. Sure, there's a lot of pauses and dialogue, but it delivered plenty of action in both manga, anime, and OVA. I guess the negative is Jotaro landing a critical hit way too early in the fight, and still easily injuring Dio, even with his blood-sucking power-up. In Diamond is Unbreakable, the fight manages to incorporate more strategy than battle tendency, while maintaining plenty of back and forth. But a lack of previous interactions is what hurt this battle, as Josuke only met Kira once before. In Vento Audio, the final battle was incredibly one-sided. Not to mention the lack of interaction, much like Diamond is Unbreakable. Looking back, I can also say the same for Jotaro and Dio, for they only met once and they just fight on the spot. But Jolene and Pucci is the right amount of face-to-face meetings in action. When I see this image of an exhausted Jolene, I can't help but feel this panel should be animated like this, with Jolene panting rapidly and deeply expressing a treacherous battle. It's truly a fight to behold and something that will probably rival the action of Jotaro vs Dio. As much as I like the womanliness of Stone Ocean, there are some problems with the story, and I think the biggest is the lack of an informative plot. In other parts, the conflict and the villain's objective was simple to follow. Dio wants to be rich and take over the world via a vampire army. We have to kill him. Pillarman wants to become perfect life forms by obtaining the Stone of Asia. We have to stop them. Mom is cursed and Dio is revived, who wants to kill the Joestars. We have to kill him to save Mom's life. Yoshikage Kira, a killer who is running loose while his ghostly victims are beckoning for help. We have to stop him so the souls can rest peacefully. Diavolo, a gangstar leader, wants to conquer the world in secrecy by killing anyone who knows his identity. We must protect his daughter and kill Diavolo so we can be in charge. Enrico Pucci, steal Jotaro's memories so we can learn how to obtain heaven. We must recover those discs to save my father. Okay, that's fine and all, but how does one obtain heaven by looking at Jotaro's memories? Again, keeping spoilers to a minimum. Araki seems to have retconned the ending of Stardust Crusaders, in which Dio's plan was to obtain heaven, but was thwarted by Jotaro, who discovers Dio's said plan in a conveniently found book, reads it, and decides to burn it. What did he find in there? How did Dio know about this, and how would he know if this elaborate process would work? I don't know, and we are never told. This is such a problem as the series gives very little details on how Pucci is to reach this objective. As I said in the beginning of the review, you don't know what heaven is till literally the last fucking chapter. But damn, it's a pretty good plot twist. You can see why Pucci would think this is a noble deed, but why would Dio do this? I don't know either. If I had to guess why people don't pick Stone Ocean as their favorite, it's probably because of the plot. Since so much fucked up confusing shit happens, which is basically a recipe for a ritual. A very outrageous and elaborate ritual that I assume can be the cause of disinterest in the content, especially when you get to the green baby. I personally have a problem with Pucci's origin story. and motivation, which I don't like it. This is supposed to be a tale expressing a fall from grace as he becomes corrupted by the vampire Dio, but things happen that don't make sense to me. If this translation is accurate, Araki's narrator is trying to keep the reader interested by saying, "It's up to the readers to judge the outcome of this story," or "Let me just relay the facts." To me, all this can be interpreted as, let me, Araki, try to convince you into believing these unlikely bullshit. I can't say much because of spoilers, but am I missing something here? I just don't think this flashback makes any fucking sense. What did the KKK have to do with the story? It's just too elaborate than it needed to be. Just stick with this image. That's all we needed for conflict. I need to wrap this up. So I don't know if this is a con or a pro, but Stone Ocean uses a lot of material from previous parts. Remember what I said about Jolene lighting herself on fire? Well, Joseph did that. Her stand shouting Ora, just like her father. Hermes being similar to Polnareff. Jolene sparing Foo Fighters is the same as Joseph with Wham. The villain is a follower of Dio. Not to mention, two enemies are basically clones of previous villains. A blind gunman being Endel, and a gambler being Darby the Gambler. White Snake manipulating people like Dio with his flesh bud. There's probably more comparisons that I didn't notice, but I'm starting to think this manga shouldn't be called Stone Ocean. The correct title should be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, subtitle, Stardust Crusaders Part 2. I mean, it makes more sense. They even share the same plot. The third JoJo of the generation has to rescue their parents from a plot orchestrated by Dio, and if you take the retcon into consideration, then they would share the exact same goal of stopping Dio from obtaining heaven. It's not good to skip parts, but given the circumstances, the story feels way stronger jumping from 3 to 6. And you know why it feels this way? Because Stone Ocean was supposed to be the ending of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. When Steel Ball Run popped out, it wasn't called the 7th part of JoJo, or at least it wasn't confirmed as JoJo canon until chapter 23. So given the plot twist that happens in the end, and once again reusing Dio Brando as the evil threat, this certainly points to that idea. Despite a couple of events that don't make sense, I believe Stone Ocean bears an emotional ending. I can't say exactly how someone should feel, but it definitely resembles JoJo 1, 2, and 3. The emphasis on masculinity, family lineage, the muscles, the physical combat, and treading on the past certainly provides a perfect stew for a finale. More so when Araki finally decided to do a female Joestar as the lead, and she'll probably be the only one. I know Stone Ocean is not people's favorite JoJo part, but in my opinion, its greatest strength is Jolene herself. Others may say the villain or the ending, but her growth from a girl with daddy issues into a heroic hard-as-nails woman is something I find admirable. I'm the manly anime hero, and I review manga so you can read it.